Hi, this is Regina. Welcome. In this video, I want to talk about parabolas, ellipses, and circles. Let's get started with parabolas. So you probably know that this is a parabola. There are basically four types of parabolas: up-facing, down-facing, right-facing, and left-facing. There is a line here that you can see, and this line has a special name. This one here has a special name called directrix. Let's look at the general equation for the up-facing and down-facing parabola. X minus h squared is equal to 4a, and I'll explain to you what a means, times y minus k. And this is identical to what I just read, except there's a negative sign. The value of a is basically the distance between the vertex and what's known as a focal point. Now, I mentioned directrix before. Directrix is an equal distance from the vertex, basically away from where the parabola is facing. So this would be your directrix line here, and this distance would be equal to a. Here the directrix is on the other side of the vertex. The focal point is always inside the parabola, and this is the distance between the vertex and the focal point, which is the value of a. And this distance from the directrix line to the vertex is also a. Notice that the directrix is parallel to the y-axis for the right and left facing parabolas. The focal point, again, is always inside the parabola. And the distance from the vertex to the focal point is a. Distance from the directrix line to the vertex is also a. Distance from the directrix line to the vertex is a. Let's look at the equations. With the right-facing and left-facing parabolas, the general equation is y minus k squared is equal to 4a x minus h. Notice the square is on the y term here. Again, identical equation with the negative in front for the left-facing parabola. Now let's talk about what h and k is. hk is the value or the point of the vertex. Let's go ahead and look at a typical problem. If you're asked to graph x minus 2 squared is equal to 4a, you can match this to one of the general equations, and I think you want to match it to this one, and you know k is 0, and x minus 2, h is 2, so you can immediately get your vertex value, which is 2, 0. You also know that 4a is equal to 4. So if you set 4a equal to 4, you can get the value for a. And if the question is asking for the focal point, from the vertex, you can go a distance inside the parabola, and you know it's an up-facing parabola because this is positive right over here. So the focal point would be here. And if the vertex is 2, 0, the focal point would be 2, 1. If they asked for the directrix, you know to count 1 backwards from the vertex, and the line running parallel to the x-axis, y equals -1, would be your directrix line for the up-facing parabola or even the down-facing parabola. Now remember, for the right-facing and the left-facing, the directrix is parallel to the y-axis. The next is the ellipses. We have two shapes here for the ellipse. One is lying along the x-axis, and you could have an ellipse that lies along the y-axis. The longer axis here is called the major axis. In this case, this is the major axis. Let's look at the parts of the ellipses. The minor axis is the shorter one here, and this is the minor axis. From the center all the way to the end, that distance is called a. From the center to the end is called a. I want to introduce to you another term, C, which is the focal point. In the ellipses, we have two focal points. Two focal points in the ellipses, and we will designate that as C. The relationship between A, C, and this point here would be B, and the relationship between A, B, and C is C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. Remember this. This will come in very handy. Let's look at the general equation for the two ellipses. If it is lying along the x-axis, it's x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared is equal to 1. The major axis is below the x minus h term. Here, the major axis is below the y minus k term. As before, hk represents the center. hk represents the center. This graph here is a perfect circle, not an ellipse. The general equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. And the center again is hk. A typical SAT question would be, what is the area bounded by y equals 4 minus x squared? If you want, you can pause the video and try it on your own, or you can work with me. If you squared both sides, you would get y squared is equal to 4 minus x squared. Bringing the x on the left-hand side of the equal sign, you get y squared plus x squared is equal to 4. Now this is the general equation of a circle. The h and k are 0, so the center is 0, 0. Radius is square root of 4, which is 2. So now you know the radius and you can figure out the area of a circle. Area is pi r squared, so the area would be 4 pi, and you will find this in your answer choice. Here's another question. Which of the following are the coordinates of a focus of 5x squared plus 4y squared minus 20x plus 8y plus 4? I want you to recall your rules for completing the square. You will need to complete the square for this general form of the equation before you can extract all of the information that they're asking, including the focus, the center, and even the shape of the ellipse. So let's go ahead and do this one. Here's the equation. 5x squared minus 20x. I've just brought the x terms on one side. 4y squared plus 8x written together, and I took the plus 4 across the equal sign on the other side. You cannot complete the square if there's a number in front of the square term. So you have to factor the 5 out and factor the 4 out. So then you have x squared minus 4x. Omit the red for now. You have y squared plus 2y equals negative 4. Now completing the square rule tells you to take this term in front of the x, divide by 2 and square it, which is 4, and you put plus 4 for the x term, and you do the same for the y terms. 2 divided by 2, square it, plus 1. And then you have your perfect square trinomial here. X squared and 4, these are both perfect squares. Y squared and 1 are perfect squares. Now before I factor my perfect square trinomial, I want to remind you that you have to multiply this term by what you had factored out, 20, and add that to the other side. Multiply the term, the third term, the c term, by what you factored out and add it to the other side. Okay, so you have your 5 here. Factoring this perfect square trinomial will give you x minus 2 squared. Similarly, it'll be y plus 1 squared equals these negative 4 and positive 4 canceled out, so I have 20 here. Now remember, with the ellipses, you want this side to be equal to 1. Remember that the general equation has a 1. So that's what we want to do here. We want to force the right side to be equal to 1. And the only way we can do this is by dividing by 20, dividing by 20, and dividing by 20. You get x minus 2 squared over 4 plus y plus 1 squared over 5. 4 and we reduce, and you get a 5 here plus 1. Okay. Now you can see that the larger number is below the y plus 1 squared. So we know that the ellipse is going to run parallel to the y-axis, and we know that this is the major axis. So a squared is 5 and b squared is 4, and this is the major axis right here. C squared is equal to a squared minus b squared, 5 minus 4, so c is 1. So from the center, you count 1 point above and 1 point below, and these 2 points are your focal points. This is C, and this is the focal points. I'm just going to write an F here. And the question is, what are the coordinates of the focal point? The one that's given in the choice is 2, -2. So the answer is D. You may pause the video and try this on your own, or you can work with me. Which of the following is the equation of a circle with center at the origin? That's very nice that they gave us the center, and tangent to the line with this linear equation right here. So to visualize this, you can imagine a circle with the center at the origin and a line, an equation going like this, and they want to know that which of these following equation is the equation of this circle. So to find the equation of the circle, since the general equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared, you know h and k because that's 0, 0. So what we need to do is look at the following answer choices and figure out which of these equations will give us this radius here, which is the distance from the center to the point of tangency. Because you're given the center as the origin, you already know that the value of h and k is 0, reminding you that the equation for a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So it looks like we need to pull out our distance formula. So remember what the distance formula is. Distance formula says a absolute value of ax plus by plus c divided by square root of a squared plus b squared. We learned the distance formula in another video. So the value of x is 0 and the value of y is 0. A is the number in front of x, b is the number in front of y, which is -7, and c is the constant, which is -29, bringing it to the other side. So we have absolute value of -29 is 29, square root of a squared, which is 3 squared, 9, plus 49 is square root of 58. Plugging this in your calculator, you'll get 3.807. So hold this thought here. That's the distance that you have. This distance here is 3.807. That's the radius. Now we have to go through all of the answer choices to see which of these equations will give us a radius of 3.807. The first one here, the square root of 12, is not 3.807, so it's not A. If I divided every single term here by 2, I'll get x squared plus y squared is equal to 29 over 2. And 29 over 2, square rooting that, does give me 3.807. So our answer for this question is B. If you tried it on your own, I hope you did get B. Moving on to another question. This is also a very interesting question and a very useful one to study. An equilateral triangle is inscribed in a circle whose equation is x squared plus 2x plus y squared minus 4y is equal to 0. So I can tell already, given looking at the general form of the equation, it will be very useful if I can complete the square. Let's go ahead and look at this one. You can pause the video now and try it on your own if you want to. Okay, first I wanted to have a visual on what's going on. So I drew a circle here with an equilateral triangle. Equilateral triangle means each of these angles would be 60 degrees. I know that. And all the sides are equal. Now I know that from the center to the corner of the triangle is actually the radius of the circle. So let me complete the square and figure out the radius of the circle. So x squared plus 2x, y squared minus 4y is equal to 0. So 2 divided by 2, squaring that is 1. -4 divided by 2, squaring that is 4. And I did not have to factor anything out, so I add 1 and I add 4 here, which gives me 5. Perfect square trinomial, factoring that gives me x plus 1 squared. Perfect square trinomial, factoring that gives me y plus 2 squared. And I know that my center, HK, is -1, -2. But I'm only interested in the radius. So the radius is √5. So the length of this value here from the center to the corner is √5. If I dropped a perpendicular line here, this angle here is 30 degrees. Now this angle originally was 120 degrees. So half of 120 is 60. So if the hypotenuse is √5, special triangles will tell me that the side across from 60 would be half of √5 times √3. √5 over 2 times √3 gives me √15 over 2, and that represents only half of the side. Doubling that will give me √15. Plugging that in your calculator, you get 3.87, and your answer is D. Okay, I just need to tell you that you should expect a general form of the quadratic equation with two variables looking something like this. There's a constant x squared plus a constant xy plus some constant number in front of the y squared term plus dx plus ey plus f is equal to 0. You can use these guidelines to predict the shape of your graph. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0 and a is equal to c, then you have a circle. If b squared minus 4ac is still less than 0 but a is not equal to c, then you have an ellipse. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then you have a parabola. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, then you have a hyperbola. I will talk about the hyperbola in another video. So let's go ahead and see how we can use this. Here's an equation. X squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 2y plus 5 is equal to 0. So what is the shape of this graph? A is the term in front of the x squared, which is 1. B is the term in front of xy. There is no xy term here, so we say 0 for B. C is the term in front of y squared, which is 1. B squared minus 4ac is 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1, which is -4, which is less than 0, and A is equal to C, so we predict this is a circle. 2x squared minus 3y squared plus 8x plus 6y plus 5. A is the term in front of the x squared. B is the term in front of xy. There is no xy term here, so that's 0. C is the term in front of the y squared, which is -3. A is not equal to C. B squared minus 4ac is 0 squared minus 4 times 2 times -3. It's positive 24, which is greater than 0, so it'll be a hyperbola. Last one, you can pause the video and try this on your own, or you can stay with me. 3x squared plus 4y squared minus 6x plus 16y plus 19 equals 0. A is 3. B, there is no xy, so it's 0. C is 4. A is not equal to C. B squared minus 4ac, 0 squared minus 4 times 3 times 4, -48 is less than 0. You will predict that it's an ellipse. Alright, I want to end this video here. I hope this was helpful. I would encourage you to rewind the video and run it over and over again so you can solidify the concept. Thank you very much for listening. I shall see you again. Goodbye.